Morning. How you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well, wherever you are in the world. I'm here in sunny Anguilla, and I don't mean to be flossing, but I had to come out here and do this video out here because it's a lovely day with St. Martin in the background, as you can see. Yeah, so part one of story of my life. First of all, let me say thank you so much to all those who subscribed so far. I know there's going to be a lot more subscriptions. And thank you for those who even, sent me a message. Some people, went the extra mile to let me know that they were tuned in. They sent me a message. They gave me some pointers, and I'm so grateful that you guys decided to come on the journey with me. So thank you, and we hope that this platform can grow, and you can grow together with me. Part one. I know some of you guys are anticipating and longing to hear about that story. I know it's a very humble story. My whole story is going to be humble. But growing up for me was a very unique experience. I am Dominican born. I'm from the beautiful nature island of Dominica. From the east, Castles. Say the wise men come from the east. That is probably true. At least most of them are, that I know are wise, very wise men. And, like I said, humble beginnings. So I was first born in an area called Emsall. For those of you from Castlebrus, may know exactly where I'm talking about. Very close to Tay, right next to Jacob. And beautiful area to be born into. I enjoy every last moment of my childhood in Emsall. I think I spent about 10 years in Emsall. When I was 10 years, we moved to lower down in the village called Bayfront. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But Emsall was where I was first introduced to music. Jacob used to have a record player, and Jacob used to play them real records. I'm talking about those real records. I mean the Burning Spear, the Peter Tosh, the Bonnie Wheeler, the Lucky Dube, the Bob Marleys. Jacob had it all, man, and that's where I was first introduced to music. Jacob would come on in the afternoon, and I would anticipate. Even at 10 years old, I would anticipate Jacob, blasting music, and I would go over because we were right next door neighbors. I would go over to Jacob. Roddy was right on the side there, and Bakey and Kanku. They had a bakery. Can you imagine? Buying a bread for 10 cents? Like I said, really, really, really humble beginnings. I wasn't raised in a rich family, but I wouldn't say I was raised in a poor family. We were raised not having a lot, but my mom and dad, worked their backs off, to have food on the table and to have clothes on our back. And we couldn't wear the Nikes and the Adidas then, but we probably had the Chinese shoes or the Razad. And back in those days, if you have a Razad is a football shoes. Basically, a Razad back in those days was a shoes that you used to use to go anywhere. It wasn't just a football shoes. Imagine that. So yeah, this is quite humble beginnings, and I remember those days, man. Even if I was 10 years old, I remember those days. They were, the good old days. And then we moved lower down in the village, more on the bay side, which we call Bayfront. My dad named it Paradise Square, but I named it Inner City. So that's where we used to live. Again, back in those days, they used to call this small niche of houses the squatting area. So we moved there. It was a new area. Lots of people were moving there from other parts in the village. And so we moved there. Actually, where we have our house right now used to be a cemetery. So I remember stories of when they were digging the foundation at some point that they would be finding skulls and stuff like that. Well, it was quite scary, but nevertheless, we never had any scary stories. Lovely area, and my childhood began to get more and more interested. Music kind of faded out a little bit after we left Jacob because my dad was an evangelist at that time. So, if you're going to hear music in the house, it's going to be gospel music. and we didn't really used to play that much music in the house. Playing music in the house started a little later down, when we kind of turned a little bit more rebel. But my dad was quite strict at that time. He's a little bit more relaxed now, and I'm sure he's going to be looking at this now and chuckling. But I was raised in a very loving home. I have never seen my mom and dad fought. I'm not saying that they never had the differences, but I've never seen them, argue, or never seen them mad, not once. And on Monday I'll be 42 years old, and I've never seen that. So that says a lot. And that consistency, is what is what carved me and molded me into the man I am today. The consistency of going to church every Sunday, the consistency of waking up every Sunday morning for devotion, the consistency of waking up 4:30 in the morning to go to school. Yes, 4:30 in the morning we had to wake up. We didn't have running water, so we had to carry water for my mom before we go to school. So I had to carry maybe 4 or 5 buckets of water before I went to school. Then we'd have to bathe by the pipe because there's no running water in the house, and we can't use the water we just carry for our mom because she needs it during the day. And so we had to bathe by the pipe. So we bathing, and vehicles are coming, and we ducking in the bushes and all that kind of stuff. Really, really fun, really, really fun memories. And kids nowadays are fortunate. They have running water in the house. I remember going to school with candle wax on my book because there's no electricity, and to do your homework. By the time we get from school to do your homework, you have to use the candles. So yeah, I remember those humble beginnings, and I enjoy those times. Nobody laughed at me at school. Nobody bullied me in school for having candles on my book. I don't think nobody cared. But I really enjoy those days. I remember, going to the river. Every Saturday morning, you'd have to take your clothes and go to the river. I can wash in my hands right now because that's the kind of stuff that my mom instilled in us. And going to the river was more than just washing clothes for us, because that was our fun Saturday. I remember the fishermen had a hard time with us because we used to take their seats in their boat to make what they do right now when they call it boogie board. We used to call it tot. We used to run tot, and I lost a lot of underwears in the sea running tot. Fun days. Darian and Ali and Jonathan. Dennis was a little younger. Can tell you about those fun days. Going to the river, staying all day until our mom has to come and get us with her belt. I'm talking about we stay in the river so long that our eyes would be so red. You would sworn that we were smoking back then. Red eyes all day. You seen smoke from staying in the river so much. But I love those days, man. And some people after they grown up, they sometimes wish that they could change certain things about their upbringing. And there's nothing that I would change about the way I was raised. Maybe I wish that music education had played a role in my life, and that's probably where Anguilla Music Academy, come into play a long time ago. Maybe that was that void that was in there for music education. Why I did Anguilla Music Academy, and we'll talk about that in the parts to come. But that's the only thing I would probably really say that I wish I had more of. But I remember when music crept back into my life. Those days going to the US was a big thing. And my dad was fortunate enough to have a band called the Happy Brothers. It was Damas, my dad, and Pastor Edward. And they went to St. Croix. And my dad bought, he was fortunate enough to buy some instruments. He bought a bass, drums, and guitar, and a sound system. 2 speakers. Those days, if you have 2 speakers, it's a sound system. And he put it in the house. And that's where music, my first love, jumped back at me. It's like seeing your old girlfriend, and she told you that she wants you again, and you wanted her all the time. That was like music for me, from Jacob. I lose Jacob music. I went down to the Bayside, and then my dad come back and bring the drum set in the house, and the drum set was like, "Hey, bro, what's going on?" And so I started to play all those records all over again, the Bonnie Wailers, the Peter Tosh, when my dad wasn't around. because my dad would say you're going to backslide his speaker if you play those things on the speaker. I don't want to go too far into all our stories before that, but let's just say we used to call our dad Sub-Zero. You know what that means? That means when my dude step in the house, everything has to go down to zero. And I love him, but don't worry, he's gonna chuckle about this one. Now he's a cool cat. He's a cool cat, and we talk all the time. At least twice a week. He calls me all the time. But he wasn't easy back then, I tell you. But yeah, but that was really my upbringing before I went to high school in the Tong. And then part two, we'll go into high school in the Tong, because once I went to high school, I started living in the Tong, so that was on a whole new experience. So in part two, we'll talk about moving from Castlebrooks and going down to Roseau in the city to go to school. But one thing I took away from my childhood was the consistency of things. The consistency, like I say, of waking up every Sunday morning for devotion, which we hated. But you was either going to wake up voluntarily or you was going to wake up with a leather belt. So you pick which one is best. So, but the consistency of that, the consistency of seeing my mom and dad always happy, the consistency of always having a mom and a dad in the house, the consistency of waking up every 4 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of things that were just consistent in my life, trained me to be consistent now, and that's why when I put my mind to something, I strive and I push to it, and I want that to be the message of part one, that consistency is key. So you might be doing something, and you might feel like as if right now that it might not be working, so you can't see around the corner. So I just want to encourage you to be consistent, stay focused, and stay on the path, and you'll be surprised, what that consistency would bring in the end. Because most of the time, when we are right around the corner, we turn back and we lose the blessing because we couldn't stay consistent to tread in the course. So my childhood was very consistent, and that is what has brought me and has made me the man I am today. And I hope you can get that out of the story. That's what I want to leave you with. And I also want to leave you with, it's not how you were raised most of the time. Sometimes your upbringing can affect who you are today, but you can change. You can decide who you want to be, and I hope that this small snippet of my story growing up in Castlebrooks could be an inspiration to you. One last story I remember now I want to share. As I remember, the first time they were giving electricity in the area, everybody was getting connected, but we were wondering what's going on. They're like coming to our house. Every time we come in next, they come in next. When they do show up, they said our meter got broken. So my dad had saved up and buy a refrigerator. And so it was one story from the next, one story from the next, one story from the next, one story from the next. Actually, we didn't get electricity that season. So my dad brought the fridge to his best friend at the time, Vanti. Big up Vanti. And so every day I had to go buy Vanti for ice and bring it back down to the house, which is like a 20-minute walk-in to go to the ice, 20-minute coming back. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember Japs. Japs used to terrorize me. Me and Japs, we cool now, so I can talk about him. Yo, Japs used to terrorize me. Japs used to be a real bad man back in those days. Darian can remember that. And I remember Japs sort of saw that I was fearful of him. And Japs used to terrorize me until one day I ended up breaking my dad's cooler, running from Japs, That was when I was, young. And then when I got older, me and Japs, we laughed about it. And I told him, I said, why don't you try it now, But that story just crept up in my mind, But that's those, I have lots of interesting stories like that, and that's how I was raised, and I enjoyed every moment of it. Every moment of it, I enjoyed it, and I wouldn't change anything. I love the way I was brought up, and I want to thank my dad and my mom, who's looking at this video today, or tomorrow, or whenever they're looking at it. Thank you for raising me into the man I am today. that consistency that you put into my life helped me to be consistent now. So, thank you so much for joining me for part one of Story of My Life. Look out for part two. Part two is moving into Roseau, moving into the city. And I won't tell you everything about that, but I'll tell you the nits and pieces about moving into the city, because those episodes can be very long if I have to give you the full story. So I'm just going to summarize and give you, the important stuff. So again, this has been part one of Story of My Life. Subscribe, like, and comment, and share this with a friend, and be blessed. And I hope you are inspired by my story. Thank you so much again for joining me, and I love you. Have a good day or night or whatever time it is for you in the rest of the world. And if you are in the cold area right now, I send you some warmth from Anguilla. Thank you so much. Bless.